Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
What if the story you keep telling yourself about failure isn't true? What if your greatest mistake wasn't a dead end, but the doorway to becoming who you were meant to be? Today, we're going to talk about how to rewrite your story, how to take the parts of your life that broke you and turn them into the chapters that define your courage, your resilience, and your rise. Let me take you back to a woman named Anna. At 47, Anna's life looked stable from the outside. 2 grown kids, a long marriage, and a career she'd invested decades in. And then, one year, it all collapsed. Her marriage ended. Her company downsized her job, and she sat in her car one morning, holding a box of her office things, whispering, "How did I get here?" She told me later that she felt invisible, not just to the world, but to herself. Like her story had ended without her permission. But what Anna didn't know then was that this rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the edit point. The place where she'd stop living the story she was told and start writing her own. That's what we're here to talk about today, because maybe you've felt it too. That quiet H of failure, that whisper that says, maybe this is just who I am now. But that's a lie. You are not your failures. You are the author of what happens next. Here's the truth: failure doesn't define who you are. It reveals what you're being invited to see about yourself. When we fail, it's easy to feel small, ashamed, or even unworthy. Psychologists tell us that failure triggers what's called an ego collapse, a deep, instinctive fear that says, I'm not enough. I don't belong. I can't do this. And in that moment, it feels real. The shame can be so heavy that it makes us want to hide, to shrink, to stay silent about our dreams, our mistakes, our very selves. But here's the thing: failure is not the enemy. It's feedback. It's a compass pointing toward growth. It's the universe or life itself, gently, or sometimes brutally, saying, here's what you need to see. Here's what you need to learn. If you can look at your mistakes with curiosity instead of shame, you'll find that they contain the blueprint for your courage. Every resilient person you admire has a story that is full of failure, doubt, and falling apart. They just didn't stop there. They didn't let shame write the next chapter of their lives. Instead, they asked a different question. What is this trying to teach me? How can I rise? And that's exactly what you can do too. Vulnerability plays a key role here. Showing up after failure, admitting we don't have it all together. That is courage. It's terrifying, yes, but it's also liberating. When we embrace our imperfections, when we admit our mistakes without judgment, we create space for growth. We begin to see failure not as a verdict, but as a necessary passage toward a richer, more authentic life. So next time you face a setback, don't run from it. Lean in. Sit with it. Ask the hard questions. And remember, failing does not make you less worthy. It makes you human. And humanity, your real, raw, imperfect humanity, is the very thing that will guide you toward your rise. Resilience isn't about pretending that everything is okay. It isn't about putting on a brave face and convincing the world, or yourself, that the pain doesn't exist. True resilience is far messier than that. It's the quiet, almost invisible work of showing up even when your heart feels heavy, when the weight of disappointment and loss threatens to pull you under. It's choosing, day after day, to take the small, deliberate steps toward healing and rebuilding, even when you can't yet see the finish line. Think about Anna sitting in her kitchen at 7 a.m., coffee in hand, staring at a blank page in her journal. The tears hadn't stopped her. The fear hadn't stopped her. She wrote down every failure, every heartbreak, every moment where she had doubted herself. And then she wrote what she wanted next. Today, I will choose courage. Today, I will honor my worth. Today, I will take one step forward. It wasn't some dramatic transformation overnight. It was the accumulation of small, courageous acts that slowly shifted the way she saw herself and the story she was living. Resilience is built in these ordinary, quiet moments. It's in the deep breath you take before responding to criticism. It's in the voice that whispers to yourself, I can do this, even if I feel afraid. Psychologists tell us that when we act with self-compassion in the face of struggle, we literally retrain our brains to respond with courage instead of fear. Every act of resilience strengthens your neural pathways of hope, connection, and self-trust. And here's something we often forget: resilience isn't about bouncing back to who we were before. That version of us may no longer exist, and that's okay. Resilience is about building forward. It's about taking the broken pieces, the disappointments, the failures, and creating a new foundation, one that is stronger, wiser, and more authentic. It's about connecting with your own worth, even when the world feels like it doesn't see you. About listening to the quiet voice inside that says, you are enough, even in your mess. Every act of resilience, no matter how small, is a declaration. I am choosing life. I am choosing hope. I am choosing to rise. And when you consistently choose that path, the impossible begins to feel possible. Slowly, gently, you realize that the pain you thought would break you is actually the soil where your courage takes root. The final step in rewriting your story is about ownership. And I don't mean just taking responsibility for what went wrong. I mean fully claiming your story, every messy, painful, beautiful part of it, without apology, without hiding, without shame. Because the moment you own your story, something remarkable happens. Shame loses its grip. Fear begins to shrink, and your power, the real, unshakable power, returns to you. Anna realized this in a quiet, almost ordinary moment. She was sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sun sink below the horizon, and she whispered to herself, "This is my life. This is my story. I will not let it be written by my failures or by what others think of me. I will write it myself." That was the turning point. It wasn't a dramatic rescue or a sudden triumph. It was a choice day after day to say, I am the author of what happens next. Ownership is not about pretending you love every chapter of your life. It's not about erasing mistakes or glossing over pain. It's about saying, this happened. I lived it. I am human. And it no longer controls me. When we take ownership, we reclaim our narrative from the voices that tell us we are not enough, not capable, not worthy. We step out of hiding. We stop shrinking to fit expectations or fears. We rise. And rising doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. The storms don't magically disappear. But owning your story gives you a different relationship with the storms. You face them with courage instead of despair. You face them with curiosity instead of shame. You face them knowing that you are not a victim, but a storyteller, a creator, a human being capable of transformation. When you own your story, you also create connection. Vulnerability becomes a bridge instead of a weakness. You start to see that your experiences, your struggles, your failures, your pain are not just yours. They are part of the shared human experience. And when you share them with courage, you invite others to rise alongside you. So if you're standing in the shadow of what's felt like a lifetime of setbacks, remember, the pen is in your hand. Every day is a chance to write the next chapter. You can honor your past without letting it define your future. You can take the broken pieces, the moments you thought would break you, and craft them into the foundation of a life that is brave, resilient, and whole. Maybe you've failed. Maybe you've fallen. But listen, your story isn't over. You are not behind, you are being refined. So here's what I want you to do today. Take one old story that still haunts you. Write it down. Then, underneath it, write, "This is where I rise." Because healing begins the moment we stop being ashamed of our story and start reclaiming it. Your scars don't make you broken. They make you beautifully human. You have permission to rewrite your story. And when you do, the world gets to read a new chapter, one written in courage, compassion, and truth. If this message spoke to you today, don't leave without sharing it with someone who needs to be reminded they can rise too. Subscribe to Motivational Humanity for weekly courage and healing. Because here your story still matters.